Well, welcome online. We got a little hiccup here in the house. We don't have any amplification. So online you can hear. So one good night for staying home. Team can come on up if you want. So if you're just got here, we don't have any amplification. Haven't figured that out yet. And if you want to hear or you're hard of hearing, the front row's open. And there's a third row right there that's wide open. So you may want to move up if you have a hard time hearing. But let's have the team come on up. And then, so we're going to use these microphones so that the online folks can hear us. And so it might look a little weird. And then, team, you're going to need to project, Chrissy. You're going to need to project.
My teacher.
Yes, your teacher. Logan, you're not going to have a problem? You're good, you're good to go? You guys are good. Chisels are good. I'm missing some people here. Where's everybody at here?
More roadblocks. Two team members are down sick.
Oh, no.
I just saw the email, so.
Okay, so here, you can pretend to use the microphone there. There's two microphones.
Okay, we're ready to go. We're live?
We're live.
Excellent. Here, Matthew. Start down there after we get going. Yeah, once again, we just got an email that two of the members are down, so we'll just have to work through this. It was a difficult flight coming back, and a lot of travel and a lot of downtime for us, and difficult times for sleeping, but the Lord was clearly working in Eswatini through us. And first of all, I would just want to thank you for the prayers that were felt over there through all the things that we were going through. There were multiple times. As a matter of fact, Matt got to the point where he said, we need to start writing these prayers down, and I think I don't know how many, it was over 10 prayers that were answered throughout the trip, from going through police lines to police officers coming to the door to people that we needed to see arriving and coming to meet us. I mean, just continuous praying over people that were not feeling well before outreaches, and the Lord just answered and came through on pretty much every prayer. It was just a powerful thing to see and be part of. And it takes me back on our first devotion that I did in the morning before we went out. I started with Ephesians, this is Pastor Shane's one of his favorite, 2:10, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand so that we would walk in them. It's just a great testimony, and Matt came up with this picture of him and his son. They were on a river in a canoe race going down the river, and I think it was Kieran was in the middle of the river, and he was rowing and moving, and Matt couldn't catch up to him because he was on the side of the river, not having the power of the river pushing him down the stream. And this really pertained and spoke to me because that's the way our team was. We were in the middle of the river on this trip. The Lord was guiding us, directing us. There were things going on that we couldn't explain, and the Lord was using us. And our team was just so uniform and flexible and just adapted to whatever went on. It was just amazing to see, as an elder of this church, just to watch our people in action. I was just proud, and you should be proud of what they did over there, not only for the Lord, but Fort Calvary Chapel. I mean, we just put a great image over there, and believe we did a great work. So tonight we're going to go through, we've selected a photo each that we're going to put up, and we're going to give time to talk about that photo and other things that affected them during the trip. And we did initially have 4-minute time frame for each of us, but I think we've got a little more leeway, so if you want to, Logan, if you want to talk a little bit longer, you can talk a little bit longer. Logan was a blessing to have on this trip. So, Matthew, if you want to go from here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we were, my picture's not up. Oh, no, there it is. But it's going to take me a while to get to that point. So we were asked to answer what affected us most on this trip, and there were quite a few things that kind of stuck out to me. Just the overall poverty that the majority of the country lives in is hardly describable unless you see it. Even showing somebody pictures, I don't think you could really grasp the poverty that most residents of Eswatini live in. So that was that. The second thing was the open practice of witchcraft was infuriating. And I would see these kind of round wood structures, and I didn't really know what they were. Some of them had, almost like an artistic aspect to them, and I had thought they were cool until I found out what they were. And so whether you believe in that power or not, the people that seek this out do, and the consequences of that are, they're tragic, to say the least, and I'm not going to elaborate on that. The need for fathers and godly men in that country are massive, from small kids to teenagers, and even beyond that. You can just, by interacting with them, you can feel their want for love, and it's really heartbreaking to see that. There was one young man that helped me and Mike do a rally station, and he said that same thing, like there's no men here. And, both me and Mike tried to encourage him that, you're here, you're being that role model for these younger kids. And so hopefully he can kind of take and run with that. This picture is me and Pastor Samora. That's who we poured the concrete floor for his church. So it was just really a blessing to be able to help him in that aspect, because he is literally on the front lines fighting and spreading the good news and helping bring people of all ages to Jesus, which is just amazing. He, along with the 7 other pastors at the churches, need our prayers daily, if not multiple times, to continue their strength and endurance through what they are doing over there for us and for the kingdom. I really don't think this is going to be my last time there, and I'm excited to see where God calls me to help out there the next time. And my final thing is that I was so worried that my work was going to fall apart without me there, and God just worked it all out. And I didn't come back to work on Monday with big issues or things I needed to handle. It was all went smooth, and I was able to just easily catch up. So God's good. That's it.
Okay, so what really affected me over there is just the need, like Matthew said, is just the need and want and desire for love was like evident no matter what we did, and we did a lot. And so this is my picture, and this is a picture of me and my new friend Tondo. And she said during the sunset, she's like, let's do this really cool things. And I had to have another kid hold my fingers in place because I could not do it. But we got it. But it just, like, when I saw this picture, it was our last night there, and it just summarized the whole trip for me. And just my heart for this country that I loved before I went there because of all the work I've done with Adventure Soccer. But it just really just made me love them even more. So let's see. It really taught me that kids and the people in Eswatini are no different than us here in their need for Jesus' love and the love of others. So every child and teenager or adult I talked to or interacted with just wanted hugs, someone to listen, someone to care about them. And I just felt very humbled that the Lord was allowing me to be a part of that. That the Lord was allowing me to be that mother or that friend at that time. There was one very special little girl, Seitu, who was allowed to be with us for half of a day. And she just captured my heart from the moment that I saw her, and I got to love on her and help her do crafts. And she just leaned against me and just didn't want to leave my side. And her mother had recently left her. And so just knowing that I was able to be that for her was it was just truly an honor that the Lord used me in that way. And I'll forever be praying for her. Let's see, I had to write it down to make sure I kept to my 4 minutes. I connected with another girl at the Sandra Lee Center, and I have never been really able to, strong enough to share my full testimony. And the Lord just, people tell you when the Holy Spirit's poking you, you just feel that like heart racing, overwhelming, and I just felt like that. And I was able to share a part of my testimony with her and able to talk to her and just show what the Lord has done for me in my life. And I've never really felt led to do that. So it was a really special connection with her. And we also, which I've always thought is kind of a vain side of me, is I love to get my hair done and I love to do my nails. And we bonded over that because that's what she wants to do. And we were able to connect over that. And also we were both knew that we were meant to find each other that night because we both love candy and we knew that we could eat at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We had no shame in that. So that was a really, really, really special time. So let's see. So I don't know if you remember when I was sitting here before we left, I asked the Lord to loosen me up, to be more available. I love my routines, and I was really worried about that when I was over there. And just not being able to focus on what I was called over there to do. And also, it's a really vain thing. I really like my hair done nice. I really do. I like it to be in place for the whole day. And so I was really concerned. So I even texted Matt and Kim to make sure my hair dryer, my straightener would work over there and everything like this. And I packed it all nicely so it wouldn't get jumbled on the plane ride. So I get there the first night. We had an hour to take a shower and get ready for our nightly meal and devotion. I plugged my hair dryer in, and it caught on fire. I'm not even kidding you. And I was like, oh my gosh, the Lord is really speaking to me that my hair does not need to be done. It is not going to affect my work here. So that was but it truly, it took my hair dryer catching on fire for me to notice that. So that was the first thing that happened to me when I got there too. So I think that's Jenna's favorite story. So, but it was I can do this, and it didn't affect the work there. It actually freed me not to care about it, and not to mention I was so sweaty the whole time, it didn't matter. Also, too, this was the most spontaneous I have ever been in my whole life, not having an agenda or a thing to do. And Matt was he wouldn't even tell us what we were doing sometimes. So the Lord did a great work. And actually, when I have come back now, Matthew said to me a couple times, wow, Africa has been good for you. So not only did I get to really just love on these kids and to be such an amazing part of God's plan over there, he used it to make me more flexible here and to be able to know that, be more available to the Lord and not so stringent to my routines. So. Also, I had an amazing group of people to work with, and not only did I see love with the kids and the people there, I got to see love and just the great connections with my team. So it was pretty cool.
My favorite part of this trip was hanging out with all the kids I met at the pastors' places. And I also enjoyed bonding with the kids at the Sandra Lee Center. I saw that God works really hard in places that don't welcome him. And he works in Africa and brings people to him every day through people like us. That also showed me that nothing can separate us from God. I learned to be more content with food and much more things because the people there really had as much as food as we do, when really they only have, wasn't it like lunch? Or no? Like a meal a day. It was 1 meal a day when we get 3. And they have so much less than we do. Some of them don't, most people in that country don't even have homes when we do. But despite that, all the kids there were smiling and laughing and playing because they learned that they don't need all that stuff. When we feel like we need it, but we really don't need it. The Lord humbled me in my bad habits that are twice as bad in Eswatini than in America, like joining in other people's conversations. Yeah, and it taught me just to not do that. Obedience and respect was probably the other 2 things that I wanted to change when I came back here. And my favorite kid that I met was at Pastor Stephen's. I never caught his name because really all he did was giggle. Every time I touched his sides, he started cracking up and he wouldn't stop laughing. I think he just needed an older sibling that could play around with him. And my favorite part of the mission work of this was being at the kids' rally at Pastor Samora's church, which is what my dad's picture was. And that kids' rally had about 200 kids. I loved just seeing those kids turn to Christ. The hardest part of this trip was seeing the struggles with some of the kids and families, like money and food. I also struggled with doing the correct verbal skills for their culture. I did really enjoy this trip. It made me feel super grown up. Michael had said I did this trip. He said if he was my age, he wouldn't have been able to do that. I thank God for that.
There were many things that I was impacted by, actually, but and it's really hard to pinpoint one. But I think the main thing that that really hit me hard was that some of the kids don't have any parents, and just seeing them come with their older sibling and they're taking care of them like an adult should be is just really kind of tough to see. And there was one little girl in particular that was sick also. She had a runny nose and was coughing, and she just came up to me and wanted me to hold her, so I did. And her sister kept looking at her and telling her to come, but she just kept coming back, and it just kind of hit me hard that they don't have anybody. They just have each other, but and how great the need is for these pastors. Like Matt said, we need to be really praying, covering them in prayer, because they are on the front line battle, of course, in their country, and they are also just providing things for these kids who have nothing. So the other thing, thanks Logan, we're really good friends now, was Matt, I think you said you forgot to ask someone to do devotions one night, and I had already taken my turn, but it was like, we each got an opportunity to do devotions, which was great. And he just looked at me in the mirror and he goes, "Chrissy, can you do it tonight?" And I'm like, "Sure." And then I thought, oh no, what am I gonna do? I just was like, okay, and The Lord just kind of really spoke to me about just sharing my testimony. And we happened to have 5 or 6 of the Sandra Lee kids with us, and 3 girls in particular. Just sweet, sweet kids. And so I think the picture that's up there is us sitting by the pool. And I was just talking about things that have happened in my life and how hard it can be, you know. And one of the girls just grabbed my hand, and they were just the sweetest, sweetest kids. I mean, they're orphans. They live in an orphanage, but they have the most tender, sweet hearts. So I just wanted to read what one of the girls wrote to me, and it was really cute. She said, "Dear Kim's twin," because everyone thinks Kim Rainey and I are sisters. She's much prettier and younger. But anyway, then she said, "Christine, I am so sorry if I spelled your name wrong." She wrote that in big capital letters. "I just want to thank you for spending time with me in Africa. Even if it was only 2 days, they meant a lot to me. I just want to say I love you, and I will always love you until I die. I really loved getting to know you. I really wished you stayed longer, but unfortunately you have to go." And she put like a sad face. "Thank you for sharing your testimony with us." Sorry. Just a sec. "It meant something to me that we should not give up and that we should always have hope." Sorry. "And that no matter how bad it is, God is always there to help you. You shouldn't lose hope in him, even if how bad you think it is. He will help. I will miss you so much, and I love you." And then she wrote, "God is within her. She will not fall." And I love this. "God loves you, girl." And then really big letters, "I miss you. I will miss you so much. I love you." I mean, it was just incredibly sweet, you know. And it just confirmed to me, too, that that was meant to be. Matt was supposed to ask me. I was supposed to share that night. Because one thing Matt shared with me, too, is that these girls do relate to when someone abandons you, you know. And because women in that country do get abandoned a lot by their husbands or their husbands, I guess. So they could kind of relate to what I was talking about. And I didn't even really think about that before that. So it was just a God thing. And I'm just really happy that I was able to share it with him, and that, I mean, this is just a treasure, this note from her. So anyway, it was a really great experience, and I definitely want to go back. So yeah, that's all, I guess.
Okay. Well, one of the things I talked about, similar to Chelsea said she wants to be less in her routine. And my thing was that I wanted to not complain. And so I can't say I fully accomplished that, but I really tried, and I felt like I developed an attitude of just, like, I don't know, the things that we say are just so silly. Like the thing, like, I don't know, one thing for me is like, "Oh my gosh, the Wi-Fi here sucks." It's like, oh my word. Like, or we were heading home on the bus, and I think it was Chelsea. She's like, "Oh, it's raining back home." I said, "Oh, my dad just detailed my car. It's gonna get dirty." And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not even like out of the country yet, and I'm just like terrible. But I think Joel Jurdy called me out once in England, which doesn't count. Says that we weren't in Eswatini yet. And other than that, I think I did decent. But I think one of the things that stood out for me, I said I really was excited to meet the adults before we were gonna go there. And I just loved, like, one of my highlights of the trip was meeting the pastors. And they would say to us, like, "Oh, we're so blessed to have you here. Thank you so much." And every time I was just like, "What do you mean? Like, you're blessed to have us? Like, you're like a superhero." Like, they're all like superheroes. It's just insane. And it was really cool to see Matt be a leader in that. And I remember there was another missionary at the place that we were staying, and he kind of came in with just such a different attitude than we had been trained to have. And I just noticed so much like the difference between Matt and their ministry and other ministries that come in there, because I don't know, Matt just like comes alongside these pastors and he tries to encourage them, but he's not trying to change them. He's not trying to change the way they do church unless it's against God's word. And so just seeing the difference in that was really cool. Similar to Matthew, I think one of the things that stood out to me is just the lack of male leadership was just like appalling. And we struggle with that here in the United States. I think more and more there's just an attack on masculinity and godly male leadership. And these churches are just empty of any men. Like it's nothing like I've ever seen before. And I think that was just so impactful to me, which I already had that belief, you know, of I really value godly male leadership, but it was just cool also, like the men on our trip, just seeing them lead us and just realizing that that's how a society starts to like fail, is when the men are not leading. And so that was really impactful to me. My picture that I have up there, that's Emily, who came with us, her and her husband Michael from Snohomish Community Church, and they were really awesome to have on the team. And then those are two little girls. One of them is Pastor Eric's daughter, and the other one is Pastor Eric's daughter, not biologically. And I just started hanging out with them one day. The guys were doing some work on the fencing, and it was kind of nice because we'd go up to the pastor sometimes and be like, can we help? Like, can the girls help at all? And he'd be like, no, it's okay. And I'm like, okay, perfect. I'll just hang out with the kids and the wives and the women. But I was hanging out with them one day, and they were trying to take me into their house, and they were like just talking. They were like, oh yeah, there's snakes in the ground. I was like, oh, that's great to know. And we were just hanging out, and I remember they were like, we all started juggling, like we were just doing weird stuff, and then they were trying to juggle, and I was just looking around, and I was like, wow, this is just so simple and so fun. And then I'll let Don tell the story. I think that he's going to tell the story about something really cool that happened to us. But when we were all holding hands praying around the house, Don will explain later, this little girl just like hugged me, just like she had known me all her life. And that was just a really sweet moment too, to just connect with her. Another thing, since I have time now, that was really impactful was the first night we were there, I sat at the same table as Matt, and Matt kind of just told us, you know, some stuff going on, and I knew kind of what went on there, but he went into more detail. And then during devotions, I was just like crying, like I could not shut off my tears. And then Mike, not to call you out, I love this about you, but Mike started to tear up, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm losing it. And he was talking about just the simple fact of Jesus dying on the cross, and he brought up the verse that he humbled himself and was obedient to the point of death. And it was just like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know, just the whole thing was just, it was just such a blessing to be there and serve with that. Like, that was one of the first devotions we heard, was just like, the whole point of it surrounds Jesus and his death for us. So that was really impactful. And then I think some personal things that God showed me was just a reminder of the power of prayer. And I think, like, there's some people in my life who are really good about praying. Like, even if it seems small to me, they'll just grab me and we'll pray about, you know, whatever the small thing is. But I think I kind of sometimes felt like I was bothering God with these little things, or just self-reliance. I mean, we think that we can handle anything, and it's so silly because we don't have any control over our lives really, or the things that happen to us a lot of the time. And so just learning, like, anything would happen, we'd get stopped on the road and we'd pray. The van would stop working and we'd pray. Before dinner, we're praying. Before breakfast, we're praying. Just like pray, 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 pray. And that was just our constant thing. And God he so personally showed up in this trip. It was just like, what? Like, the God of the universe is like we talked to him and he responds. That was really cool. And then also, I just feel really refreshed and renewed, which I'm really grateful for, because I was kind of like, oh man, I'm gonna go from work, which I'm not complaining about, but I'm just saying, like, I wondered if I would start to feel really tired, and I just feel like I'm coming back, especially to my job at church, just feeling really refreshed and reminded of just basic things. And yeah, I'm just grateful that I feel like the Lord really used this to disrupt my routine in a different way than Chelsea, like just to get myself, like, I don't know, less, I don't even know the words, less comfortable, I guess. Another thing, this is funny, Chelsea at staff meeting yesterday was like, I've never been more spontaneous. And I was like, I've never been more structured, like waking up at 5:30 and like dinner's at 7 sharp, and I gotta get to the van. Me and Christy every single day, we're like, oh my gosh, Matt Rainey, we gotta get there on time. We cannot be late. And so coming back, I'm like, man, I can sleep in. And Chelsea's like, oh, this is so spontaneous. And I was like, that is the type A plus and the type B plus that we are really showing. And then also her hair dryer blowing up was just like, she didn't tell me that till day 4. And I was like, Chelsea, this would have made like, oh man, it was just the best thing I've ever heard. And telling the pastors was just priceless. It was just the best thing ever. So thank you, Chelsea, that your hair dryer broke. Yeah.
All right, so before leaving, I shared that I was having cold feet going because I felt like I wasn't going to be of any use to the team, and I didn't have the skills. I'm not a teacher, so I was like, what am I going to do for a kids rally? I have no clue how to work with kids. I don't even like kids. And so I'm like, what am I going to do here? And we're doing building projects. I have no experience building stuff, so I'm like, I have zero clue why I'm going on this trip. But one of the things that Matt had me do was a building project on my own, and I'm like, okay, let's hope this doesn't fall and kill somebody. But it worked out. He had the confidence in me that I was like, I'm like, okay, you want me to take on this project that I have no idea what I'm doing? I don't work with tools for a living. So I put up a temporary structure for shade for one of the kids' rallies, and it got used immediately. I built 2. I was helped by other people, but I was working on one, and the other one was already being used. And when the second one got finished, that one was being used. And so it's kind of given some clarified that, yeah, I can still be used in ways, even though I'm not skilled in those areas, that God will make it work out for his good. And on the first day of the kids rally, I was paired up with the other Mike that's not here, and we're doing an object lesson centered around Romans 8:28. And so Romans 8:28 says, and we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. And we were giving out strands of wire, and the object lesson was that basically something that's useless or garbage can be turned into something. This is what we created, like little flowers and things. And actually accidentally kept mine, but I figured I'd keep it for good. So I kept my little flower that I made from garbage, and something that's useless that God can still bend it and mend it. It's something that can be useful or can turn into something beautiful. And I know that God will be faithful to not just complete a work in me, but complete a work into those kids and adults who are there. I may not physically see it, but I have faith knowing that he's going to complete his work there. And he showed me that while I was there. So
let's see here. This was my second trip to Swaziland, Eswatini the second time. And I think one of the first things I'd have to admit to everybody, and I think everybody would admit, that God was working all along the way, because we ran into a number of trials along the way, but every time a trial came along, we figured out, or something happened, and we just overcame it. For me, it was the 20 hours of flight there, and then 4 hour plus in the van, and still in having the strength to get up and actually be able to function as a human being. I wasn't able to do that on my own, for sure, because I was beat tired. You know, I have to echo some of the same comments that others have said. There is a real lack of male leadership in the country, and in the church there especially, because when we went to the church service on Sunday, and if you ever have an opportunity to go to Africa and participate in one of those, you got to do it. It's a blast. Hopefully we got to share one of the videos from church, but they're very energetic. But it was sad to see no men in the congregation. There were some young teenagers, there was the pastor, but there were no men. And it was extremely disappointing. But along with the low parts of the trip, there was so many highs. We had the opportunity to interact with so many incredible people. The pastors alone, to see what they're working on the front lines, and to be side by side with them, to talk with them, to encourage them. Just as we shared earlier, they would always say, hey, what an encouragement to have you here. But, oh my goodness, what an encouragement to us to see what it's like to be on the front line and to be responding as they are. Pastor Eric, we got to work with his son on a number of projects. The kid is just outstanding, growing into becoming an outstanding young man. Pastor Samora, he had, 4 sons? Was it Pastor Samora that had 4 that were helping us with the concrete work? I mean, we had a team, I want to say he had 4 sons, outstanding young men that are going to be the future of the church there and the future of the church community. Another high point that I loved seeing was that even though the church community lacked the men, that community was so encouraging to watch. The laughter, the friendliness. I mean, you talk to anybody, there was nobody that was afraid to talk to anybody, regardless of the language difficulties. They were friendly, they were open, they were loving to everybody there, and it was incredibly fun to be part of. The picture, thank you, Jennifer, for picking that out for me. This was on Pastor Eric's property, and I can't remember the name of the young man that was helping us there, but we were helping with a fencing project there. It was a chance to help Pastor Eric, who was kind of in a bind when the government, and I don't know if Matt would ever share a little bit more about the story of what he was facing, but some of the local government officials were making things pretty tough on Pastor Eric. So we were trying to help him meet some of the objectives he needed to accomplish on his property so he could continue to work the church, the orphanage, and provide the services he's doing to his community. There was something else. I guess the last thing, I'll just real quick here. Yeah, we heard that song, didn't we? It was on one of the playlists in the van. Yeah, actually, that was another answer to prayer, too, was every time we got into the van, the fact that it actually made it back to Eswatini. Working with Matt and I'm gonna throw Matt out there because he was awesome on the concrete. The size of the church floor that we put in together was probably about 25 feet by 50 feet? Yeah, 30 by 50. And we had a number of kids running in with the wheelbarrows full. Don and I were trying to get the concrete to level out a little bit to kind of get it to a point where we could, start working with it. And then we were using hand floats, to smooth it out. I mean, we didn't have the big float with the 10-foot handle to sit there and just do it nice and easy. We were on our hands and knees. in 95+ degree weather. And everybody that was involved in that project just worked their hearts off, man. It was incredible to see because it was a very physically taxing job. So, and then of course also with the kids projects and all that stuff, the team just worked incredibly well. I mean, every single time something had to be done, the person that stepped up to it or the team that stepped up to it literally hit it out of the park. It was a home run every single time. It was incredible and an awful lot of fun to be with. So I'd encourage anybody that's ever thought about it, go for it. It's worth it.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, Matt's a stud. The work he did on that and the finish work, holy cow. We almost had to drag him out at the end because he was so tired. Pretty close. He was done. But it was amazing because we went in there on Sunday church. It was a dirt floor, angled slightly, 8 degrees. And 2 days later, they had a cement floor. And the day after that, they were doing a children's ministry inside of it on this cement floor. Totally blessed them. And which will end up down the road, and this will be probably Matt's next trip, we'll be putting the floor in on the church because they'll actually turn this building into a chicken coop, which will then support the church. Which is, I think this is my 3rd time there, and that's probably what impressed me the most was that Pastor Eric's, he is now sustainable. He doesn't need assistance from anyone. They've got a chicken farm there. They're raising pigs. They're putting fruit trees in the back, I think mangoes, possibly, and they've got a little store out front, so his church is self-sustained. He doesn't need support from anybody. So it's amazing to see the work, and this is what's being done at these other 7 churches. Step by step, they're coming in and implementing each one of these changes so these pastors can be supported, these preschools can be supported, all these kids can have somewhere to go. Like we talked about, they get 1 meal a day. They come to these pre-K centers for that meal, and then they're able to minister on them and reach these kids for Jesus. It's just an amazing picture of what the Lord's doing over there. And the one picture you had talked about, the poverty, I just can't get out of my head as we're flying down the freeway going 70 downhill and 10 up, I think it was. Maybe 15, Matt. Was people just walking on the side of the road, just going. And you're seeing them walking and you're looking down the road to see where they're going and there's really nothing there. So they are walking a long way for something everywhere they walk. So they're looking for food to eat at night, to have their 1 meal a night. And not only do they got to find the food to eat, they got to find the wood to burn to cook their food. So this is how it works there, and they're just moving around by feet, and it's just an amazing picture of how spoiled we are here in the United States, of the availability and the things that we're blessed with, or we believe we're blessed with. So my picture is a picture of a collapsed home. This was a home of a family of 7 children, mother and father. Father was a drunk, and we were trying to meet up with them. We went out there the first night to Pastor Eric's house, and we were hoping and praying that we would run into one of their children on the road, so we could minister to them and give them food for their family. And I think Matt had some plans for what he was going to do with them, but that first day we didn't see him, so we came back. I think it was the second day. Matt had a little pastors conference with the 8 pastors, a little bit of training, and we blessed them with a lot of goods, and they all worked on the fencing project. And when we got done, I think it was that day we walked, Matt said, well, let's go walk to their house. And this was their collapsed house, which is half the size of this stage, where 7 kids and 2 adults lived. So we just prayed. We got our hands together around this and prayed not only that we would see this individual so we could minister to him, but that he would come to know Jesus and get out of his path that he was on. So we left that area and went back to the van, and we were packing up to go, and I'm in a van, and Matt comes over the door and says, Don, come out, get out here. So I came out of the van and walked around, and here's the drunk old man standing there in front of me. And Matt says, you need to talk to him, because that's my testimony too. So I stood in front of this gentleman just looking straight in his eyes, and really what I saw was a reflection of me before I became a Christian. He was a lost man and had no hope. And I just kept staring at him. I said, your only way out of this is to get to know Jesus. You need to come to Jesus. And he's just like this. And what's your name? My name is Joseph. So Pastor Eric and I laid hands on him and prayed, and we got up and left and went off to do something else. And that night, I think, Matt, you got a text from Pastor Eric that he had come back to the church crying, wanting prayer from Pastor Eric. So Pastor Eric sent him off and left. So that was like the second prayer that was answered for us. And then this morning, I think, or yesterday morning, Matt sent me a text that he actually went to church with his whole family that Sunday. So you think about the Lord taking us, this group, from Seattle to Eswatini and standing in front of a gentleman who had the same struggles as I did that I could minister to, or everyone on this team that ministered to somebody from this far away. It just was amazing to see how the Lord worked in us, through us, for his glory. It was just a complete blessing. And I'm thankful for all of that. And the other thing, I think, having been my third time, I've seen the kids at the Sandra Lee Center, the orphans, and to see these kids grow up, a lot of them into godly young individuals, is just amazing. To be able to get in there on the last day and play basketball with them and soccer and do a little study with them was just a complete blessing. So these kids need your prayers, just for guidance and direction. As we talked about, there is no fatherly figures there. They have no parents, and they need our prayers and our support financially when needed. And I think that's probably all I have, because I'll probably start crying if I go through any more of these things, because it is emotional. These kids love on you amazingly, and I hope to go back. Matt asked me when the next Calvary Chapel team was coming over, and where's my wife? I don't know, but there'll be another one. So with that, we'd like to cue a video. Matt, you want to? We don't have any sound, so Matt knows these areas. Maybe he can do the visual on it when it goes through.
I'm sure Jenna picked some great music for it.
This seems really awkward to do play-by-play here.
The sight of the pilgrims gone nowhere, the millions of cars. They got a dream in the distance, for promises he
We're in metric.
there was no harvest.
We're in metric. We're not in.
He missed the sky and its circles, and countless the stars. In Africa, the rivers are perfectly blue.
Oh, nice.
In Africa, the mountains will sing the sweet and say it's alright, child. It's alright. In Africa, we dance in the water, hold each other so tight. In Africa, the birds will sing to sing and say it's alright, child. It's alright. Joseph rode in on a beam of light, dreamed of his queen by his side. There'll be a beautiful sunset, and you'll be a beautiful bride.
it's easy to get overwhelmed and find yourself in over your head on in trying to wrap your mind and your heart around the magnitude of poverty and the difficulties these children who are orphaned, what they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis for survival. And we were injected into that world. And it does a number on you. But one of the things that I think I'll take away from this team that might have been different from other teams that I've hosted in the 13 years that our family's been serving here is I've never seen so clearly God doing modern day miracles. I've seen a lot of action in the mission field, but it was just so overwhelmingly obvious to me God's movement this time around. Not only in taking ground that was owned and occupied by the enemy and taking that ground for his kingdom, but in the process, he was giving us these nuggets. And you've heard some stories that really didn't even brush the surface. And I'll just focus on the last one because it's the freshest. This is a man who really, I don't want anything to do with this guy. I was looking for his kids. I was done with this man years ago. My heart had hardened to pray for this man because I actually am angry at this man for how he's destroyed his family, what he's allowed to happen to his daughters, how he's destroyed the future of his sons, how not a single one of the 7 of those kids has ever been in school, how he's a drunk, and even in the process of encountering him, he about knocked me over with the smell of marula. This is someone I despise because of my love for kids. Yet God would march this man in this tender time, and I don't want anything to do with him. So I called my good friend, and I had to walk away before rage took over what really this man deserved. And what I'm describing is what I really deserve from God. And this song we all worshiped together with tonight about amazing grace, I got to watch it unfold as this man who deserved not even a single second with Dawn was given 10 minutes with Dawn and was given the story that resonated with him, even in his drunkenness, that brought him back when he was sober, only to say, I want to change, Pastor. I want to change. And I heard everything that man said to me, and I think the change for myself and my family is what he shared. That is short-term missions in a nutshell. And for that, I'm truly grateful. I didn't reach that man with the hope of Jesus. I looked past him. But a short-term missions team did. Thank you for sending them. Thank you for trusting us to host them. And Niabonga Jesu. Thank you, Jesus. You're so good. Can I close us in prayer tonight? Father in heaven, thank you for never giving up on us. Your word tells us that while we were still sinners, you, Jesus, you came and you died for us. When it was undeserved, when we were still living in it, you did that for us. You did that for me. I'm so grateful that you're still moving, that you're still overwhelming and giving us that awe feeling. and that you're still giving us something to testify about, because you're on the move. You're winning hearts. You're changing lives. You're raising up this next generation that will know you and love you and follow you and will change the fabric of the society in Eswatini. Niabonga Jesu. Amen. Amen. Thank you for coming tonight.